Welcome to the brief history of Valiant Comics Part 2. Today we will be discussing the 2012 return of Valiant Comics all the way up to the current Valiant iteration. As before, I would like to hear what your favorite Valiant characters are. Drop that in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. This costs you nothing but is very valuable to us, as this lets us know what kind of content you want to see more of. Any recommendations for subjects to discuss, drop that in the comment section as well. In 2005, Dinesh Shamdasani, Jason Kothari, and a group of entrepreneurs purchased the rights to the Valiant Comics library from Acclaim. They formed Valiant Entertainment. In 2007, Valiant Entertainment hired former editor-in-chief Jim Shooter to write new short stories for hardcover reprints of material from Valiant's original run of comics. Stories such as the formation of the sect from Archer and Armstrong. The story served to explain how the sect came about and why they wanted Armstrong dead. In 2012, Valiant began publishing new monthly comics of newer adapted versions of the Valiant characters. As stated in the brief history of Valiant Comics Part 1, the characters Solar, Magnus, and Turok were not Valiant originals, and as such, they did not get new comics because they reverted back to Gold Key Comics. Eventually, the characters of Solar, Magnus, and Turok would be replaced with new original characters that were essentially the same but also quite different. I may discuss these characters later in the video or in another video altogether. The new Valiant Comics began with Exom Mana War, which premiered on May 2nd of 2012. Writer Robert Venditti and illustrator Carrie Nord tackled the title. At over 42,000 pre-orders, the first issue became the largest new publisher launch in over a decade. Issue 1 had a second, third, and fourth printing. All were sold out. The updated version of Exom Mana War began in 402 AD. Much like the original, Eric fought against the Roman Empire. The backstory of his family being murdered by Roman soldiers was altered. His father died from the wounds that he received from a battle that Eric further instigated rather than making the ordered retreat. As his father lay dying on his bed, lamenting the futility of fighting the Roman Empire, he drew his last breath. What appeared to be Roman soldiers outside the Visigoth camp turned out to be aliens landing in a field. Eric fought them and eventually lost. The aliens this time were not spider aliens. They were known as the Vine, an insectoid species from the planet Loam. The Vine aliens would come to Earth and hide their younglings, called plantings, among the humans of the planet. They would replace someone's baby with one of their own, which would shapeshift into human form. This is how the Vine insinuated themselves into human society. Eventually, they would take positions of power, preparing for the eventual invasion to conquer Earth at a later date and time. This is a major plotline further into the Exom Mana War series. The Vine aliens took Eric and his Visigoth brethren aboard their ship and enslaved them to work the gardens aboard the massive mothership in deep space. Working the gardens was hard work, and many would die before Eric and his people would find their freedom. During an attempted escape, Eric witnessed a member of the Vine species, a soldier, volunteering to be bonded to the sacred suit of armor called Shanhara. A sentient armor spawned from the Hara Vine of Loam. Shanhara is worshipped as their god and messiah, once wielded by a legendary figure that freed the Vine species from enslavement under the Torment. The Torment are a whole other thing that I will not get into at this time, perhaps in a later video. The bonding did not go well, as the soldier was killed by the armor. Eric would be captured and forced to work in the garden, tending the plants. One day, while protecting another slave, Eric would get his left hand chopped off. After many years, Eric managed to escape once again. This time, he and a group of slaves made their way back to the temple that housed the sacred armor Shanhara. Once there, he donned the armor. He leaves the ship crippled and escapes back to Earth. He returns to Earth by crashing into the Colosseum in Rome. Once on Earth, he is immediately attacked by soldiers. He quickly discovers it has been 16 centuries since he left Earth. Exom Mana War is a savage barbarian warrior, similar to Conan, the Barbarian. He is a man out of time, much like Marvel's Captain America, wearing a suit of armor similar to Iron Man, a living sentient alien suit like that of the Venom symbiote. He is all of these rolled into one. Next, we see the release of Valiant's second title, Harbinger, a much darker retelling of the rebellion led by Peter Stanchek and a group of Sciats against the Harbinger Foundation, controlled by the megalomaniac Toyo Harada. An immensely powerful Omega-level Sciat, similar to Professor X of the X-Men comics, only he is not as understanding as Charles. The first issue begins with an 18-year-old Harada in 1951, traveling through the Kali Gandaki Gorge of the Mustang District in Nepal. It is here that he finds the Flying Nest Hermitage. Inside, he used his abilities to force a group of soldiers to kill each other, as he calmly walks toward a large cave in the back of the building. It is here that he finds the ancient Bleeding Monk. The Bleeding Monk greets him and alludes to a vision of the future. We next see the 18-year-old Peter Stanchek walking the streets of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He is surrounded with the thoughts of everyone around him. Stanchek is also an Omega-level Sciat, much like Harada. Peter and Harada are born fully activated Sciats, while most are born latent. Instead of embracing his abilities, he drugs himself to dull his senses. He and his friend Joe are strung out on various drugs and squatting in an empty house. Harada is now a Japanese businessman with Harbinger Foundation locations and labs all over the world, essentially raising an army of superpowered Sciats. His ultimate goal is unclear. Stanchek visits Chris, a girl that he had a crush on as a kid. Using his abilities, he forces her to love him. That night, Harada appears to Stanchek in the form of a talking dog. Harada then enters his mind and they have a conversation about everything that Stanchek is doing. Stanchek is then attacked by soldiers. Harada wants him to use his powers to show him what he can do. Peter tears them apart. Harada has Peter picked up and brought to the Pittsburgh branch of the Harbinger Foundation. It doesn't take long for Peter to realize that Harada does not have the best intentions in mind. He wants to use Stanchek to activate dormant latent Sciats. Stanchek activates the powers of a girl named Faith. When Stanchek learns that Harada is responsible for killing his friend Joe, he loses it. After a brutal fight with other members of Harbinger, Stanchek escapes with the help of Faith. Stanchek forms a small group of powerful Sciats to challenge Harada over the next several issues. The next title released is a rebooted Bloodshot title. In this version, he is a soldier named Ray Garrison that is sent on dangerous missions. He is implanted with false memories of a wife and child and a patriotic backstory. The truth is, he is a killing machine with no actual memories of his own. His body is practically made up of nanomachines that enhance him and give him phenomenal regenerative abilities. He is controlled by Project Rising Spirit, a secret organization that works with the government. On a mission, his target is a scientist that captures him and hacks his nanomachines and shows him that his memories are false. He is then captured by Project Rising Spirit. He breaks free, killing a number of soldiers, and goes on the run. Not able to trust his memories, he tries to find out the truth of who he once was. Next up, we've got Archer and Armstrong. A comical romp with conspiracies, ancient history, secret organizations, and yes, even gray aliens. Armstrong, or Aram, as he was originally known, is an immortal human from the time of ancient Mesopotamia. He and his brothers Gilad, the immortal eternal warrior, protector of the Earth's geomancer, and his brother Ivar, a time traveler who was thought to have died in the ancient past. The series starts with Armstrong and his brothers in the city of Ur. Gilad is dead. Ivar plans to use a strange device known as the Boon to resurrect him. Aram warns him of the dangers of messing with something he doesn't fully understand. Ivar, at the time, was arrogant and self-righteous. He believes he knows what he is doing. They fought over the boon, and Ivar managed to activate it. The resulting explosion killed most life on Earth. We then meet Archer, a young man that is unwittingly in a cult called the Dominion. A very, very religious and dangerous cult that wants to control the world and kill the he who is not to be named evil that is Armstrong. Archer is a very talented Saiyan that can learn things very quickly and with great skill, eventually even capable of learning how to use other people's powers. Archer is sent out into the world to hunt and kill Armstrong. He eventually finds Armstrong getting drunk in a bar, as he usually does. They fight one another, but are then forced to work together to free themselves from another cult known as the 1%, which is actually just another group of the same cult. An image of Ivar appears to Archer, who thinks he is God. Ivar tells him to help Armstrong. The two form an alliance to take down the sect and find all of the pieces of the boon before the sect can. We would then see a new Shadowman series. The series wastes no time in introducing one of Valiant's main antagonists for many years to come. His name is Master Dark, an extremely powerful sorcerer. In the first few pages, Dark kills Josiah Boniface, the Shadowman. Shadowman manages to stab Dark, but they fall into a portal to the dead side, the underworld of voodoo myth. The son of Josiah, Jack Boniface, inherits the curse of his father, but the curse is kept at bay with an amulet that his mother gives him. When he returns to New Orleans a grown man, he removes the amulet and throws it away. The curse finds him as he is shot in the back by two cops that are possessed by demons. The curse is to be the host of the Shadow Loa, a powerful voodoo spirit. Jack Boniface becomes the Shadowman. Shadowman and Dark would face off throughout the series as their history is revealed. In 2014, we would witness a Valiant-wide event. Armor Hunters. In this event, we would learn the truth about the Exo armor. The armor is a living entity, sacred to the Vine of Loam. However, there is a dark secret surrounding the origin of the armor. In Armor Hunters, we would discover that the armor is one of thousands, perhaps even millions in the universe. The armors infect someone, completely taking them over. They become mindless weapons that go from planet to planet, destroying everything in sight. Eventually, the armor turns the person into another suit of armor, and then they both find another host, spreading throughout the universe like a plague. There is a group of hunters that seek out the armors and destroy them. During one specific hunt, one of the members of the Armor Hunters group, Malgam, gets infected with an exo armor. It slowly takes him over. He maintains his mind for a while. He escapes the hunters and comes to Earth. It is here that he fights Eric in a bloody space duel, among the rubble of the Vine fleet that Eric destroyed years ago, in a story arc called Planet Death. The infected hunter, Malgam, is incapacitated by Eric's armor. The other hunters arrive on Earth and immediately attack a military base that contains armor based on the exosuit. Primary Rebo, leader of the hunters, demands that the armors and those wearing them are handed over. To drive home their point, they destroy Mexico City with a single attack from space. The hunters fully intend to destroy the planet as they have always done to every planet that has had an exo armor infect someone. In the grand finale, Eric defeats Primary Rebo in combat. Now, Eric knows that every time he is physically hurt, the armor replaces part of him. Slowly, he is becoming an exo armor himself. Eric demands that Shanhara does not repair his body any further. He will heal from his wounds naturally. He will still eventually be converted into an exo armor, as seen in a glimpse of the future, but the process will now take longer. Later, in a special issue, we learn the origin of Shanhara itself. Originally, she was a young girl named Shanhara from the planet Janine, dying from a bone disease that affects millions of her people. Her father, a brilliant scientist, blends bionics with the flower of the Hara vine. He creates protective armor to heal those suffering from the disease. Unfortunately, a side effect is that the armors take over their bodies and create a new species. Shanhara sacrifices her life to bond with her armor, and is placed in deep sleep until she comes to reside on the planet Loam. In February of 2015, we would see the creation of Divinity. This would be the character that would replace Solar Man of the Atom for the Valiant Universe. Divinity was once a Soviet Union cosmonaut named Abram during the height of the Cold War. He was recruited by the Soviet government to take on a 30-year mission into deep space. In 1960, he and 2 other cosmonauts began their journey. They arrived in a place called the Unknown. Abram was changed. Something gave him the powers of a god. Later, he would say that it felt like that was the moment he died. After 55 years, Abram returned to Earth. He landed in the Australian outback in 2015. He granted wishes to people and amassed a following. He was being worshipped as a god. Soon a group of heroes known as Unity were sent to capture or terminate him. Unity consisted of Livewire, Ninjak, the Eternal Warrior, and Exom Mana War. Being able to alter time and space, Abram, now known as Divinity, turned seconds into months. Eventually, Unity would go on the attack. Livewire managed to form a prison pod around Divinity. Divinity was then buried in an underground facility. Divinity is not a villain, in fact he wants to do good, to help mankind. However, many times this means doing nothing, to allow humans to learn from their own mistakes. The Divinity series was very well received and had 5 sold-out printings. In the much-anticipated Divinity 2, we would meet another member of the 3-person cosmonaut group that accompanied Abram on his deep space journey to the unknown. Her name is Mishka. Unlike Abram, Mishka still holds true to her communist ideals. Now possessing the powers of a god, she attempts to make Mother Russia the only superpower by changing the past. However, Abram chases her through time and space. Eventually she stops herself, after Abram convinces her to let it go. It is easy to see the comparison between Mishka and Mother God from the original Unity crossover of 90s Valiant. As she was Solar's antithesis, so is Mishka to Abram. Eventually, in Divinity 3 Stalinverse, we would see the 3rd cosmonaut return to Earth. And then, in the series titled Eternity, Abram and Mishka produce a child that is taken by cosmic beings. In January of 2018, it was announced that DMG Entertainment had bought Valiant Entertainment. As part of the deal, Dinesh Shamdasani, Peter Cuneo, and Gavin Cuneo would be leaving the company. They had been in the process of creating a live-action 6-part web series for the upcoming Ninjak versus the Valiant Universe comic. The series was created by Bat in the Sun. The series would feature the now-late Jason David Frank in the role of Bloodshot. For those of you who do not know who Jason David Frank is, he is this guy. That's right, the first Green Ranger, Tommy Oliver from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Despite rumors that the web series would be shelved permanently in April of 2018, it was released. It has since disappeared, but occasionally pops up on YouTube. To many, the buyout by DMG would be the turning point that caused a second fall of the Valiant Comics line. And although comics began to dwindle in releases and the quality declined, Valiant kept themselves afloat. Previously, in 2015, Columbia Pictures acquired the rights to do a live-action Bloodshot movie. Soon it was announced by Sony Pictures that there would be a 5-picture deal to produce more Valiant feature films. In March of 2018, it was announced that Bloodshot would be played by Vin Diesel. It was rumored that Ken Watanabe was to make a cameo as Toyo Harada. However, there was a copyright change, and that did not happen. Bloodshot was released on March 13, 2020. On March 18, 2020, Sony announced that due to the movie theater closures, the movie would be released through video on demand. Bloodshot was the most watched film on Amazon Prime at the time. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Valiant Entertainment slowed publishing new comics to a crawl. Only one title was hitting shelves every 1 to 3 months. Valiant shut down their offices, and it began looking as though Valiant was done for. On December 6, 2023, Alien Books began releasing and publishing Valiant comics. Valiant and Alien formed a partnership, whereby Alien Books would publish titles for the Valiant Universe. The goal is to strengthen the Valiant publishing line. The titles will feature both the Alien Books logo and Valiant Comics logo. The first new issue printed under this partnership was Exom Mana War Unconquered No. 4, which had been delayed for several months. Alien Books is an independent publisher that was founded in 2023 and quickly expanded. They have recently announced the Valiant Resurgence event. We are now seeing several titles a month, and they are picking up steam. The writing and art have both improved for the newer releases. Titles include Exom Mana War Invictus, Ninjak vs. Roku, The Valiants, Faith Returns, Rai the Book of Dark. Upcoming titles as of the recording of this video are as follows: The Dark Soul Side, Eternal Warriors, Last Ride of the Immortals, Archer and Armstrong, Assassin Nation, Livewire and the Secret Weapons, and a Valentine's Day special. Despite the rumors, Valiant isn't dead. Thank you for tuning in. I hope that you have enjoyed the journey. More videos to come. Perhaps a more in-depth view of characters from the Valiant universe. Until then, find a new interesting title to read. Try something that isn't from Marvel or DC. Independent comics have a lot to offer. With that, I will see myself out.